What age can you get a business license? We're going to answer that question in this video. Okay, that's a great question. What age do you have to be to get a business license? And you know, this is great because this plays into my life. I've had my first business since I was 16 years old, so I've kind of been around the block and back when it comes to business licenses. So the first thing you need to figure out is, depending on the city and the jurisdiction you're in, the county maybe, the town, they're going to let you know what that age is. And it depends also on the type of license that you're trying to get. So most business licenses in most states, you would need to be probably at least 18 years old. Now, again, some of the other, I'm telling you, some of the other licenses, they're going to be at least 21. And there could be some licenses that you might even have to be older than 21 years old, just depending again on the industry. The easiest way to do it is to call the city that you're trying to get your business registered in. So the city might have a lot of different departments, and I know sometimes it becomes aggravating when you're trying to get in there, but I would just go online and I would probably get on Google and I would do a search for your city and maybe type in, city hall or city clerk. So if you're saying Los Angeles, you would type in like Los Angeles City Clerk, Los Angeles Business City Hall, or something like that. And when you call them, whoever the operator is, just ask them to transfer you to the business or business license, business licensing, something to that extent, permits and licensing, things like that. Have them transfer you to that department. Now, what's kind of great about this whole deal is I'm trying to think back to when I was 16 years old and starting a business. And this is going to be a good story that's worth listening to. So if you're young, if you happen to be around that age or maybe right below 18 years old and not quite 18 and the city tells you you got to be 18, if you've got parents that you'd like to put the name into until that happens, that's great. That's what I had to do because I was 16 years old. I didn't want to wait another year and a half, 2 years. I think I was maybe 16 and a half or so when it happened. I didn't want to have to wait that full time in order to turn 18 before I started my business. So the business was put into my dad's name, and that's fine. I mean, I trust my dad. Everything's great. Depending on the situation you have, maybe you're not in a situation where you feel comfortable. If you don't have a great relationship with whoever, your parent is or your guardian or whatever, maybe you don't want to do that. And it might be worth waiting until you're 18 years old or the age to put it in your name. But here are the things you have to consider. This is what I want you to listen to. When you set up a business, there's so much paperwork that goes along with setting up the business, okay? So as an example, you're going to register your business. So you're going to get your articles of organization or your articles of incorporation with the state. And then you're going to register an EIN number, your employment identification number, or federal FEIN number, basically the same thing, FEIN or EIN. Those numbers are going to be tied to you or whoever is registering the business, right? So if you registered in somebody else's name, then at some point, it's not like an easy fix. It's not hard. It just takes a lot of time. It's kind of a pain. So if you're willing to go through that, just understand you're going to have to deal with that. And then to fully legit set up your business, you're going to want to set up an operating agreement. And a good attorney can set that up for you. I mean, you could Google sample operating agreements and you can see the different ones that they would have online. And that gives you kind of an idea of what goes in them. But every business needs to have an operating agreement, which basically, if it's just you, it's still needed. It's just going to dictate what your rights are for the business and what you have the power to do. And there's so many things you can add or delete. It's whatever, you cater it to whatever your needs are, which is why it's good to have a good attorney help you with your operating agreement and set that up. But if you set that up, let's say you set up a business and it's in your father's name. Well, the operating agreement is going to be in your father's name, which means that legally you have no rights to the business, that the money and the banks and the name of the business and everything you develop, all that stuff belongs to your dad in that particular case. Again, if you trust your dad, no big deal, but at some point you might want to get that transferred into your name. So there's a lot of paperwork that you're going to have to deal with on the state level. Then you have to think along the lines of, let's say you set up all your different permits and licensing and tax accounts. Those also are going to be set up in that person's name that you register the business with. And again, this is applying to people, say, that are under the age of whatever the permit is. So 18 years old or 21 or whatever it is, you're gonna have to go through all that. So think about your tax accounts, your sales tax accounts, your withholding accounts, and unemployment, all this stuff. All of that's going to be tied. If you remember, I talked about the EIN number. So all of that's going to be tied to the EIN number, which is also going to be tied to the person who registered the business in the first place. So I'm always really big on what we call planning your landing. Just like a pilot does when they're getting ready to land a plane. They don't just all of a sudden decide at the last minute, hey, we're just going to land down there. They plan their landings. And so in business, it's very important, I'm going to keep preaching this, that you plan your landings, that you plan ahead what your steps are going to be. So if you decide, let's say you're 17 years old and you're like, gosh, I just turned 17. I really want to start my business now. I don't want to wait an entire year. Maybe it's worthy of putting it in, say, one of your parents' names or your legal guardian's names. And then you're just going to have to go through all the work a year from now and transfer everything into your names. But what could be a huge drawback would be, let's say you went that route. You put it in your parents' name, one of your parents' names, and then you just forgot about it and you ignored it because you trust them and you're a family and you don't worry about it and you just kind of let the days and the months and the years peel off. And then you're just like, yeah, I don't really need to change it. I mean, everything's working fine and I'm listed just as an employee. That's what you could do. You could just be like the general manager or the vice president or the president, whatever, and you could draw a salary, but just say your parent would legally own the company. Well, the problem comes with, as you grow that company, the company becomes worth something. And so, for tax reporting purposes, you can't easily, you could potentially have your parents say gift it, but then you have to go get an appraisal company or maybe 2 appraisal companies to actually come in and appraise the business. And that's a pain. That's a lot of work. So they got to come in. There's a lot of work that's involved to appraise that business. And then when they appraise it, now you got to go check with your CPA and say, okay, I started this business like 10 years ago and I put it in my dad's name and now it's worth $1 million. And now, holy cow, I want it to be in my name. My dad's okay with that. But from a tax perspective, you got to ask your CPA, how do I do this? Is there tax ramifications for doing that? And there probably is, unless maybe your dad gifts it. And again, those tax laws change, which is why you have to go to a good CPA. Check with your attorney as well. But these are the things you have to consider. If you're young and not of age to get a business license and to register your business, and you just decide, like I did when I was 16, to put it into somebody's name, and to this day, that business, 27 years later, still in my dad's name. He's the legal owner, right? And even though, I'm the heir to the throne, so to speak, on paper, my dad's a legal owner. So, if I could go back when I turned of age, I would have sat down, we would have set up the operating agreement, we would have created it and done things a little bit differently than than it was today. But hey, it's my dad and I trust him. So these are things I want you to consider. Nothing to stress out about, but I've been there, I've done that. I know what you're thinking. But the easiest way, about what age you have to be to get a business license. Step 1, find out what kind of a business license it is. Step 2, call that city and ask them, and then just go forward with that. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you liked it, please please comment. If there's any videos you'd like to see me do in the future, I'd love to try my best to do as many videos as I can. And don't forget to subscribe. Remember, in business from me, no matter how hard it gets, never quit, push hard, keep pushing, and be the hustler.